All right, so we are very happy to have you with us for this interview. We are going to be interviewing Becky Chambers here as part of the Celsius Festival. And yeah, well, for us, we consider you as an important voice on contemporary science fiction, so we are really glad to have you here. And yeah, that's it. We're going to read, and we're going to do a short introduction for our audience before continuing to the questions.
Okay. Just in case there's still someone who doesn't know you, I don't think so, but just in case, well, Becky Chambers is the best-selling author of the Wayfarer series, the Monk and Robots novella, and other works of science fiction. She's a two-time Hugo Award winner and the Locus Award winner, and also nominated for the Nebula Award, the Arthur C. Clarke Award, and the Women's Prize for Fiction, among others. And Becky has a background in performing arts and grew up in a family involved in space science. She spends her free time playing video games, hanging out in the woods, and learning about the universe. I love this, this description. So thank you so much for being here for our podcast, and we have prepared some questions for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
So to start, we would like to know how you first got into writing science fiction and which were your main influencers.
So I've been a science fiction fan my entire life. I grew up on Star Trek and Star Wars, and once I got into my teens, just started reading everything. But it wasn't actually until I was in high school that I became interested in writing science fiction. I have been writing my whole life. I've been writing ever since I was a little kid. It's always been my favorite way of expressing myself. But when I was in high school, I had a teacher who handed me The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, and it really opened my mind to what science fiction was capable of, and how much more it could be. And that was the book that made me go, oh, I want to do this too. So she was obviously a huge influence on me. Beyond that, the works of Carl Sagan, not just in my personal, or not just in my professional life, but also in my personal life and in my worldview, hugely influential. And then again, you know, the pop culture that I grew up with. I grew up right alongside 90s Star Trek. That was, that basically raised me. And just the natural world as well. That continues to be my greatest inspiration, is just the planet that we already live on.
That's great, and it also very related to my question, because our podcast is called Droids and Druids. So it's a mix of science and nature, like you said. So we always ask our interviewees if they are more a droid or a druid.
Oh.
You have to choose.
Do I have to choose? Oh, but see, I wrote a whole book about how you don't have to do that.
That's true. Okay, in your case.
Okay. No, I would say if you twist my arm and I have to choose, I would say I'm more of a druid than a droid. But that's a mean question. I'm joking.
So yeah, talking about that, we wanted to know more about your approach when creating the worlds in your novels, like worlds on different planets, etc. And what do you consider when writing about technology versus nature? That often seem to be in opposition, but well, maybe they are not always like that. Like, for example, as a monk and robot, for example, and yeah, your stories feature robot characters that have emotions or community-based ecosystems. Like, how do you approach bringing all of this together?
I think the key to it is in a bit of phrasing you just used about technology versus nature, right? This is often how we present these two things, as fundamentally in opposition with each other, that one can't exist without the other. I personally think this is ridiculous, because technology is just tools, right? It's just things that we build, and we are not the only species that creates and uses tools. We've done it to a fancier degree than anything else on this planet thus far, but we're just using tools. And so I think that our relationship with how we view technology, not just how we use technology, not just how we make technology, but how we view it, needs to change. In that we do need to see that we as a human species are not separated, cannot be separated from the biological environment that we live in. We are biological beings. That's just a basic requirement there, but also that we don't have to sacrifice the things we've invented to make our lives better in order to maintain that balance. We just need to do these things in a sustainable, more symbiotic way. So when I'm creating societies in my work that have achieved that, or at least on the path to achieving that, or somewhere close to achieving that, I try to make sure it's never perfect. And also I make plenty of societies that don't have those traits as well. But that's always the key idea I'm trying to bake in there, regardless of whether it comes to where our food is coming from, where our water is coming from, how we are using computers, what sorts of technology we have and we don't. I often, just on the technical side of things, will go through and make like a big table or a spreadsheet ahead of time talking about sort of the haves and have-nots. What kinds of technology do we have? Where are we sourcing it from? So it is a lot of work. It's a lot of detail that goes into that. But I'm always trying to improve on that front in thinking of as many different sort of connection points within that scope.
I love this answer.
That's great. And in Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which, by the way, I love the title. We were talking earlier that your titles are so beautiful and so original.
Thank you.
And we have an AI lobby, the way as far as AI. And how do you view it's also a book written way before the AI boom that we had now. And how do you view it now and its relationship with the Yanks?
Yeah. So I think part of the trick right now that we're having with the broad conversation about what we're calling AI in the real world is that we're talking about largely three very different types of technologies. You have the imaginary concept of a thinking, feeling, sentient machine. I have yet to see any evidence that such a thing exists in the real world. You have analytical models that are built for extremely niche, very directed work, such as detecting cancer, radio astronomy, these sorts of things where you have built a software model that can analyze amounts of data that a team of humans reasonably could never get through in a single lifetime. And we're talking about what is being marketed as AI, learning language models and agentic systems that are pushed on, for broad consumer use, right? The fact that we're using the same word for all of these things, I think, muddies the waters. And I think if we hadn't started calling that last category AI, we wouldn't be having these same sorts of conversations. I think that applying the stories that we've told about sentient machines to that technology is something that is quite damaging in a lot of ways. I think it is fueling a lot of delusional thinking on people's, among the people who use it and also the people who sell it. And I think that the more we can separate those two would be a helpful thing in actually talking about the impacts of the technology at hand. Because often, and not always, but often, when we are writing stories about robots, writing stories about sentient machines, we're not actually talking about actual robots, right? We're talking about what it is that makes us human. We're talking about the concept of individuality. We're talking about autonomy and agency and all different sorts of ethics. They're really more of a thought experiment than a blueprint for saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we made a computer that could think? Now, I do think it would be cool if we made a computer that could think, but I also think that pretending that we have already done so as a means of making profit or as a means of pushing a specific type of technology on people who may not want to use it, I think that's a big problem we're having right now.
Totally.
And when writing about characters who travel through space, you pay a lot of attention on medicine and also aspects as food supplies, like you mentioned several times hydroponic, I think it's spelled that well, hydroponic farming, for example, and also the realities of living through cryosleep, like what happens when you wake up and your nails are like terrible, and also like the kind of medicine that you have to take to survive in a higher in a planet with higher gravity. So like, how do you plan all of this?
This is some of my favorite work that I do on a book, is figuring out just the material resources that everybody needs. A lot of that is born out of my real life interest in human spaceflight. I am a fiend for learning about the International Space Station and the things that astronauts train for, how they live, how they eat, all of these things. I'm just endlessly interested in that. And so it's a really fun game to play with myself, to say, cool, now make up a system like that on your own. I also think a lot of those things can be a useful avenue for giving the reader a tangible sense of what it is to exist as these characters do. Most of us, the vast majority of us, will never be astronauts and will never live on a spaceship. So you have to start with tangible things. What are we eating? Where are we sleeping? What do our clothes feel like? What kind of medicine are we taking? How do our bodies feel when we're up there? I really try to give the environments in my story as much of a touchable sense as possible in order to draw the reader in.
Amazing. Yeah.
Another thing we love about your books is the diversity of the characters and the relationships among them, the cultural difference, emotional differences, and how the relationships between them are developed. So what do you consider important, and how do you think about when you're writing these relationships?
Right. I mean, some of it for me is just kind of subconscious, both as a queer person, but also as a member of a sprawling international family. Like, cultural differences are something I have had to navigate and work my way around my whole life. I still have to do these things. And for me, all of that comes from a huge place of love. For the diversity of the people in my life, the diversity of the people in the places that I'm fortunate enough to go visit. That for me is so core to who I am and my entire existence that I'm not sure I know how to write something other than that. I imagine, if I were to imagine writing a book that is monocultural, that's kind of depressing. That's a depressing thought for me. I really like to play with the messiness that surrounds our constant need to connect with each other.
And we love them, so...
So when Monk and Robot was published here in Spain by Crononauta, I remember that everyone started to talk more about the cozy genre. And the thing is that I would like to know, what do you think about this specific genre, especially when it comes to, like, people think it's just like people live happy and that's it, but there's actually conflict. Characters suffer as well, like maybe they have different kind of conflicts, which is what this scenario offers. So yeah, can you tell us more about
Sure,
it?
yeah, I think I struggle a little bit sometimes with the term cozy, just because I think it does have, exactly as you described, this sort of semantic surrounding of it being sort of fluffy and empty and like a little bit sugar-coated. And the thing of it is, even if it was just that, that's not a bad thing. Everybody needs some sugar sometimes, right? But I also think that there is a misunderstanding in what is actually going on within books that, not just mine, but in others as well, that I would prefer to label as comforting, right? And yeah, I mean, you can split that hair a lot of different ways. Is a blanket cozy or is it comforting? It can be both or it can be either. But I think it is really important for us to have places we can curl up in and rest in a fictional context, especially with as stressful and scary and distraction-laden as the world we live in is. One of the most powerful things you can do is just step out of it for a little while and regain your strength. So I think that coziness, comfort, these are things that are all part of a balanced diet, right? You reach for the books that you need, always. It might be that sometimes it might be something else. I certainly, in my own personal life, will gravitate toward darker stories at times or serious stories because you need what you need in a given day. So I see it as just one of the many different flavors on the shelf that's there whenever you need it.
That's great. And we also need more hopeful stories, I think. Yeah. So I know that you're, you published As You Wake, Break the Shell recently, but in Spain it will get here by October. So is there something you can tell us in advance?
Yeah, absolutely, as much as I can, because it actually hasn't come out in the States yet either. It also will be out in October. So As You Wake, Break the Shell is the first in a pair of new books. I went back to space with this one, which I was very excited to do. It is in equal parts a space story and a love story. It is told through two different characters in two different timelines in two very different worlds. It is an enormously personal book for me, and it's crammed with just about everything I love in it. It's got space whales, it's got rogue botany, it's got inhabited moons around ringed planets. It's really me teasing apart my current feelings about a human future in space, and also celebrating the kind of love that I love best.
Okay, that's nice. We will read it. And I would like to ask you about space exploration, which is a common topic also in your novels. And we know that you're passionate about space exploration as we are. But at the same time, nowadays, it's like this has been ruled by technocrats and those kind of rich people that want to make it worse and escape from Earth just for their own good. So we want to ask you, what do you think? Also, how do you feel about it?
Right, it's something I have a lot of really big feelings about. I think that we badly need to reclaim space exploration for the people, because I believe that it is our pathway to understanding the biggest questions we have about ourselves. Where do we come from? What is our place in things? Where are we going? How will we survive into the future? These are all questions that where the answers to this puzzle are out there in the cosmos, right? I think that the current direction that much of the world is headed in, where we are allowing people to take the reins of space exploration for the sake of resource extraction and profit and manifest destiny. Tourism as well, yes. I think it's wrong. Bluntly, I think that space is something that belongs to everyone. I think that the amount of resources, both physical and human, that it takes to send a craft out into space is enormous. And if we are going to spend those kinds of costs here on this planet, then it needs to be something that benefits everyone on the planet and that everyone has access to. I think that the idea that space only belongs to the rich, to the elite, to people who are special is a really, really damaging idea, because the truth of the matter is the universe belongs to all of us equally. And so I do see what's happening right now as a kind of perversion of a pursuit that at its best is something that really celebrates and champions
what we can do is a collaborative effort. So I really strongly feel that we need to put some other folks in charge of those projects, and to foster space programs that that serve people over profit.
Sure, yeah, and write these kind of novels too, which I think that
Yes.
also help. Yeah.
I think that as with all things, books are not going to save the world. As much as I would love for that to be the case, but I do see that what I do and what my peers do, what all of us in the science fiction community do, is really necessary support for the real world work that needs to happen, whether it be in space exploration or in environmental science, in societal change. All of us are having these conversations and these thought experiments constantly, right? And so I think the work we are doing is important so long as it works in concert with the actual, real, non-fictional work that needs to happen.
That's great. I was just about to ask that if you thought about books on having an impact on the conversation, but actually you were here also in 2018 in the festival, and
yes.
now, so do you feel the conversation has changed, has developed, and not only in the literature world, but also in the everyday conversation?
I think that the need for not just for hopeful stories, but for, as I said before, reclaiming of not just space exploration, but of science and how we perceive ourselves as part of the biological environment that we are a part of. I think that need has only become more urgent since 2018. All of the issues and fears that I was writing about then have only become heightened since, and especially with the world heating up, and especially with so many societies becoming fractured in so many different ways. I think that the need to continue this sort of storytelling, not just mine, but everything within the genre, but whether it be dark or hopeful, all of it is working together. And I think it's, to me at least, it just demonstrates a need that we need to keep at it. We need to keep going. And as I said before, doing it alongside actual action in our communities that will hopefully turn the ship around before it's too late.
Totally. And do you feel like this conversation and this growing interest in people is also reflected in how they go to books? They are more interested in science books, science fiction books, maybe? I
think so, yes. I think that there is definitely some bleed in both directions. You do find people who are interested in real world science being like, maybe I'll try out some science fiction, or people who maybe have never read science fiction before pick up a book that they fall in love with and then say, I'm interested in learning about this real world thing too. One of the things I love in speaking with real world scientists about their influences, where they came from, is how many of them grew up reading science fiction, watching science fiction, how many of them still love it. These two fields have always been in symbiosis with each other, and so I think that's a really beautiful relationship that I feel privileged to be a part of and am eager to help continue.
Amazing. So I'm going to move a bit to a different topic because we read that you also like video games, and also like we have seen that you're a huge fan of video games, and we wanted to ask you what video games do you play? Which is your favorite one, or just recommend us?
Yeah, I play a lot of games. I am particularly fond of RPGs. I love a big RPG that's going to take over my life. I love puzzle games along the lines of Blueprints was the one I lost
months to last year. I love stealth games. I love little indie games. I love mysteries. I love just gaming in general. It is my favorite hobby. And a lot of those worlds are things that I have pulled in for inspiration from and comfort from as well. Most recently, what have I been playing? I just finished up Rogue Trader, which is a Warhammer 40K game. I haven't touched Warhammer before, but a friend of mine was like, I think you'll really dig this. And I did.
And you liked it?
I loved it. It was so much fun. Beyond that, I mean, I will play everything from something like that, which is really grim and gory. But I also love things like there's this game called Tiny Glade, which is
the castle.
Yeah, it's a castle building game. So I'm in a long-running tabletop campaign we've been playing for 12 years together now. Same campaign. We've just kept going. And I like to use Tiny Glade to make environments from our campaign, and so whenever we go somewhere cool, I'll see if I can build it in that. Yeah.
That's a really nice game. Yeah.
Great. So we have so many games. You recommend it. How about books? Could you recommend some books for
us? Oh, sure. One of my favorite books that I've read in the past months was The Everlasting by Alex Harrow, who is here at this festival as well. Just a tremendous read. Made me cry my eyes out. It was stunning. What else have I been reading lately? I just started this book called The Light Eaters, and the author escapes me at the moment because I've been running from thing to thing. But it's a nonfiction book about botany, which is a personal interest of mine as well as relevant to the book I'm working on right now. So I often read a mix of genre and nonfiction. I kind of bounce back and forth between the two. Both because I love the genre, of course, but I'm also just endlessly hungry for things about the real world. So those are two that have had a good place on my shelf lately.
That's it. Okay, so lastly, just to finish the interview, would you have some advice for starting authors?
Oh, absolutely. The biggest thing is to not romanticize burning yourself out. There is a real persistent idea in all creative fields that, especially when you're young, the idea is to just go and go and go and go. And if you're not, burning the candle at both ends, you're not actually, you don't actually care about it. You're not doing it right. This leads to so many people giving up and deciding that it isn't for them anymore, and I think it's robbing us of a lot of creators. So my biggest advice would be to take breaks and to rest. You don't need to write every day. I don't write every day. I certainly don't. I play a lot more video games than I write. And to have hobbies and interests outside of books and writing. I think there is also a trap that's easy to fall in, and it comes from a good place of just wanting to devour as much of the genre as possible. And I mean, of course, that's a good thing to do, but also read books outside of the genre. Do stuff that isn't reading, do stuff that isn't writing, because all of that will fuel your stories, it will fuel your worldview. It will make you more creative in the end. So yeah, take good care of yourself. Don't feel like you have to rush. I remember very keenly when I first started out this feeling of, oh no, everybody else is doing something and I need to catch up to everybody else. There's no actual race. This is a long, slow walk that we are all on. And that writing especially is something that takes a lot of time to develop. So give yourself that time. And do whatever you need to make sure you're healthy and happy while you're getting there.
That's amazing advice. Thank you. So we finished the question. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm really happy and excited about this interview. So thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the festival, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this chat. It's been wonderful. Great. Shucks.